Hey gamers! You've stumbled upon a list of top-notch single-player games that are guaranteed to make this cold autumn fly by. This selection is incredibly diverse, covering a wide range of genres and moods. Enjoy the deep dive! Call of Duty: Modern Warfare 2! This is, in many people's opinion, the best game in the entire series, and I partly agree. As a kid, I played the original about 10 times. For this video, I used the remastered version so as not to fuss with settings. The plot is simple. World War III has kicked off, and our squad of brave soldiers must stop it. The game consists of slickly staged missions with a ton of action, a sea of gunfights, a solid soundtrack by Zimmer, and, surprisingly, an interesting storyline, though I preferred Black Ops at the time. The remaster noticeably improved the graphics and added a couple of new animations that weren't in the 2009 original. If you have the option, I recommend playing the remaster. If you were looking for a great single-player shooter that will only take 2 evenings to complete, I highly recommend it. Alice Madness Returns. I'm sure many of you have heard the fairy tale about Alice in Wonderland, but the question is, whose version? There's the sweet story by Lewis Carroll, and then there's the dark interpretation by American McGee. It's the latter we're discussing today. Alice Madness Returns, released way back in 2011. We play as the green-eyed and frankly unhinged Alice. She suffers from severe psychological problems due to a horrific incident in her past. Wonderland here is nothing more than the protagonist's sick subconscious, from which she must escape and, consequently, fix her mind. Yes, the graphics are dated, but the visuals and the design of the locations born from Alice's troubled imagination are a pure masterpiece. It's a perfect example of how to make locations mesmerizing and eerily atmospheric, even without cutting-edge technology. The same goes for the enemies and characters. Each design is unique and stands out from many games. The bosses are beyond praise. In terms of gameplay, the game feels like a 7th-generation console project. And that's not a bad thing, just a fact. You run around, explore, solve simple puzzles, fight. Each enemy requires a different approach and tactic, and of course, the good old platforming is right there. Resident Evil 7 is, in my opinion, one of the most atmospheric games in the series. At the same time, it's quite controversial for Resident Evil fans, and not everyone embraced it in 2017. The reason is obvious: the first-person view. Many were outraged by this, even though in terms of gameplay, it's a true Resident Evil from the 2000s, where there's no constant focus on non-stop action like in the 5th installment, but the main emphasis is on the story and atmosphere. The atmosphere is undoubtedly magnificent. We are told the story of a new series protagonist, Ethan, whose wife goes missing. She contacts him, and our hero goes to rescue her from the Baker family mansion. It's important to understand, unlike Chris or Leon, Ethan is not a soldier, but an ordinary man willing to walk into hell for love. And this is perfectly shown, as the mansion and the entire Baker family are pure hell. The Bakers themselves are not just psychopaths, but victims of experiments, and their tragedy is revealed through diaries and flashbacks. The gameplay also fits. There are gunfights, but little action. Ammunition is usually scarce, and to advance the plot, you need to solve puzzles. The puzzles in RE7 are a perfect example of how they are not annoying, but are logically woven into the story and are satisfying to solve. It's a shame that fans of the series didn't embrace this installment warmly, but I personally loved it and recommend playing it.
Wolfenstein: The New Order. A quick description might make it seem like just another shooter of its time, churned out in batches and nothing interesting. But that's far from the truth. At first glance, it's an alternate World War II with meaningless shooting. But beneath that hides a true diamond in terms of story. It's an alternate WW2, where we play as BJ Blazkowicz. In 1946, he is severely wounded and wakes up in the 1960s to find that the war has been lost and Germany has won. The hero's goal? Find the resistance, destroy the Nazi machine, and restore hope. The plot isn't just about killing everyone, it's more of a personal drama. Along the way, you'll meet many colorful characters you'll grow attached to and, unfortunately, will have to lose. The whole story is an emotional roller coaster, from a romance with the nurse Anya to meeting charismatic allies. And the finale makes you ponder the cost of victory. Imagine you're watching a Tarantino movie, but you're the main character. The game fully lives up to the first-person shooter genre. The gunfights here are beyond praise. The game was released in 2014, but plays well even now, in 2025. It has easily passed the test of time. The soundtrack deserves separate mention. It's simply magnificent and was written by none other than Mick Gordon, who later gained fame with Doom 2016. And the voice acting in the original is simply superb, especially the voices of the key characters. As far as I know, there is no Russian dubbing for the game, which, in my opinion, is a plus.
Spec Ops: The Line. It wasn't just the French at Ubisoft who were able to show the ugly side of war. Just a year before Valiant Hearts, Spec Ops: The Line was released. Unfortunately, the game didn't receive the attention it deserved in 2013, and only gained popularity years later, which I consider unfair. At first glance, it seems like a typical third-person shooter of that era, with decent gunfights and action. But that's a fundamentally wrong first impression. The plot premise is simple. A catastrophe has struck Dubai, and your squad must rescue survivors and find the missing 33rd Battalion. Seems easy? But the further you progress, the tougher it gets. Not because of the gameplay, but because of the horrors of war you'll witness. You will have to make difficult choices more than once. Who to save and who to let die. And the moment involving the use of white phosphorus is an extremely brutal episode that will be etched in the memory of anyone who played it. Spec Ops: The Line is a profoundly anti-war game, unlike all the fun run-and-gun shooters. It perfectly shows how even an experienced soldier can break and lose their mind. The staging here is beyond praise. And yes, there are several different endings. Is there a happy ending? I won't say. I simply recommend playing it yourself, at least once. You probably won't play it a second time, not because the game is bad, but because it's simply too difficult to witness again. Red Dead Redemption. The first part of Red Dead Redemption is a true diamond from Rockstar, released over a decade ago. I didn't play it on release, but went through it a couple of years ago via an emulator at 30 FPS. So imagine my surprise when the game was fully ported to PC with proper optimization. I'm incredibly envious of those who will play it the right way. Believe me, despite its age, it's definitely worth doing. Many call the first RDR GTA in the Wild West, but those are people who, in my opinion, haven't played it. The only things they share are a crime story and an open world. In every other way, RDR fundamentally differs from GTA. At the very least, the game is maximally unhurried and can seem slow-paced. Don't expect tons of action in every mission. The story continues the events after the second part. RDR 2 was a prequel. Playing as John Marston, your goal is simple: to eliminate the remnants of your old gang in exchange for freedom and a quiet family life. Along the way, you'll meet both new, charismatic characters and familiar faces from the second part, such as Dutch.
I especially want to praise the open world. It's simple: main story, activities, side quests. And the side quests are the game's main gem. Each one is unique, and I strongly advise against skipping them. Some people like to bring up The Witcher 3 as an example, but good side quests appeared in games much earlier, and RDR1 or Skyrim is proof of that. The story here is simply magnificent. I thoroughly enjoyed replaying it this year with a normal frame rate, which I recommend to you if you've never touched this masterpiece.
Batman: The Enemy Within, the Telltale series. Next up is the second season of Batman from Telltale Games. I'm incredibly upset that this season turned out to be the last. Why? Simply because Telltale's take on the Dark Knight story really resonated with me. I devoured both seasons in one sitting. After the Arkham series, this felt fresh and interesting. The second season continues the theme of Batman's double life. If the first season walked the fine line between Bruce Wayne the businessman and the protector of Gotham, here you have to go undercover and infiltrate a squad of villains. I've never seen this in a Batman movie or game, and it makes the playthrough incredibly engaging. In what other Batman game can you befriend or even turn the Joker to your side, or learn more about the villains than from a simple note? Since this is an interactive drama or interactive movie, there are dialogues and choices galore. I'll say right away, you can't fundamentally change the plot. But, for example, the final, 5th episode has 2 completely different variants depending on a choice made in the 4th. And oh yes, the action scenes are brilliantly staged. Fights against both petty thugs and bosses. I often felt like the Arkham series was missing this, where Batman sometimes fights dirty, using batarangs almost like knives. It looks stunning. I know many will say, it's just scripts and QTEs, no real skill needed. Yes, that's true, but what does it matter if you're getting a thrill from what you see on the screen?
Prey from 2017. Many called the game BioShock from Arcane Studios, the team that gave us Dishonored, and they certainly know a thing or two about immersive gameplay. The action takes place in 2032 on the Talos 1 space station. We control the scientist Morgan Yu, male or female. The story starts a bit cliché. You wake up, but something is wrong. The station is in ruins, the crew is dead, and black alien creatures, Typhons, are hunting you. The plot, which begins as simple survival, quickly revolves around the questions: who are you really? What kind of experiments was the corporation conducting? And why are the Typhons here? In classic Arcane style, the lore isn't spoon-fed. You'll have to gather all the information through audio logs, notes, and dialogue with survivors. The gameplay adheres to the developer's formula. You're given a location, a goal, and a ton of options for how exactly to achieve it. There are often multiple ways to complete a task, which adds to the interest and replayability. I must praise the execution of the station itself with its magnificent design. From retro-futuristic offices to zero-gravity sections, it looks stunning. And yes, the soundtrack here is once again handled by old friend Mick Gordon. He proved once more that he can write not only dynamic music for Doom or Wolfenstein, but also something more industrial with pulsating beats that enhance the immersion. If you love atmospheric sci-fi thrillers and aren't afraid of a little paranoia, Prey definitely deserves your attention.
There aren't many games that genuinely tackle the topic of religion. Developers are often hesitant to tread on thin ice. Far Cry 5 and Outlast 2 might come to mind, and both focus on Catholicism. But what about Orthodox Christianity? That's where the magnificent Indica steps onto the stage. It's not just the game's title, but the name of our main character, a nun with skeletons in the closet, or a lot on her mind. She constantly hears the voice of a demon and sees strange hallucinations, which, to put it mildly, makes her unpopular. One day, Patience snaps, and Indica is sent far away to deliver a letter. Thus begins your journey through an alternate 19th century Russia where you constantly run into trouble. The main twist is that along the way, you meet Ilya, an escaped convict. And here's the paradox. Indica hears the devil while Ilya claims to communicate with God himself. The game constantly raises themes of religion and its contradictions, genuinely forcing you to think. Therefore, dialogue is everything. The voice acting here deserves separate praise. The characters speak like ordinary people. No perfectly articulated voices. They might swallow a word, mumble, or speak indistinctly. Compared to other games, this is incredibly cool because the characters feel alive. The gameplay might initially seem like a walking simulator across incredibly beautiful and atmospheric locations. Kudos to the visuals. But there are moments where you'll need to use your brain to solve simple but interesting puzzles. Sometimes the game even switches into full pixel art, where the gameplay can become pure hell. I'm probably the only one who, during the frog segment, was ready to sell their soul just to get through that part. If you were looking for a project that will make you think, especially the ending, then Indica is a hit you can't miss.
Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. A first-person shooter, Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. If you're unfamiliar with the updated trilogy, you should start with The Old Blood in terms of story chronology, as it's a prequel to the brilliant The New Order. Unlike The New Order, which emphasized a dark and dramatic story, The Old Blood focuses more on fantastic gunfights, action, and mission staging. The dramatic element, alas, took a back seat, which, however, can be a plus for those looking primarily for brutal gameplay in a shooter. And here, the game delivers fully. Every firefight feels great thanks to the execution, a cool soundtrack, and stunning enemy takedown animations. Plus, this part pays homage to the older games with occultism and zombies, which you get to shoot closer to the finale. This perfectly breaks up the fights with regular Nazis. If you want to get acquainted with the series, start with this installment and then move on to The New Order or The New Colossus.
Life is Strange 2. The Life is Strange series now has 5 full-fledged games, including the first, the second, and 3 spin-offs like Before the Storm. In short, there's plenty to get lost in. But for me, the first 2 parts are the best, and I simply adore Life is Strange 2. I can finally recommend it, as it's the best game in the entire franchise. The story of 2 brothers who must travel across the entirety of America to find their place is more captivating than a top-tier TV show. Once you start playing, you devour episode after episode. I played it in 2022 and remember rushing through it in a week, playing 5 episodes a day. You know that feeling when you finish a great game and look for something similar, but sadly nothing compares? Life is Strange 2 and Red Dead Redemption 2, in my personal experience, evokes exactly those emotions. The plot, as I mentioned, follows 2 brothers who are forced to flee to Mexico after a tragic accident in the first episode. I won't spoil anything, but the younger brother has a superpower, telepathy. It's both a gift and a curse that will save you more than once on your journey. A difficult road awaits them, a sort of road movie, where they'll meet many people, those who will help and those who will try to harm them. The atmosphere of traveling across the country is flawlessly executed, something rare in games. If you missed the second part for some reason, fix it immediately. You play this game once, but you remember it forever.
Little Nightmares 2. Here we have the second part of Little Nightmares. I'll say right away, Little Nightmares 2 is an ideological continuation of the original. It's the same dark, yet incredibly stylish and sometimes indecently beautiful, thanks to its horror, platformer.
We play as Mono, a boy with a paper bag on his head, who, along with Six, familiar from the first part, tries to escape a nightmare world full of distorted creatures and frightening locations. The lore and plot are conveyed without a single word or note, but it's not needed. The visuals and atmosphere speak for themselves. Every location, whether it's an abandoned school with a crazy teacher or a city where televisions consume people, is captivating with its macabre detail. Since this is a horror game, it masterfully plays on your nerves, sometimes forcing you to sneak around, fearing every rustle, and sometimes throwing you into frenzied chases where your heart pounds with tension. The gameplay is a platformer with an emphasis on interestingly designed puzzles. They are intuitive and often rely on the interaction of the two heroes, which adds a touch of warmth to their relationship despite the surrounding horror. My advice? Grab a gamepad, put on headphones, and play through it, because the sound and ambient score are simply magnificent. If you liked the first part, you can't skip the second. I, for one, am eagerly awaiting the third.
Beyond Two Souls. When the topic of good interactive drama comes up, Quantic Dream immediately springs to mind, the studio that gave us Fahrenheit, Heavy Rain, and Detroit. These games perfectly embody the genre, but they also had another creation, Beyond Two Souls. It didn't become a cult classic, but it's not a complete flop either. In fact, it's a solid middle ground title from these developers. I only played it this year, even though I bought it ages ago. Let's start with the plot premise, which I find quite interesting. We play as Jody Holmes, a girl who has been linked since childhood to a mysterious spirit named Aiden. Aiden is a sort of phantom that no one else can see, but he can influence the real world. On the one hand, it's a powerful supernatural force that will save you more than once. On the other, it's a curse that prevents Jody from living a normal life. She is hunted by scientists, the military, and her own fears. The story spans 15 years of her life, from a scared child to a young woman searching for answers. Who she is, why Aiden is with her, and how to stop a supernatural threat. Unlike other Quantic Dream games where you control multiple characters, here we only play as Jody and Aiden. Moreover, the story is told non-linearly. It jumps between episodes. One moment you're escaping from a SWAT team, the next you're hiding among the homeless or fighting in the desert. I must praise the facial animations and the actors. Elliot Page, before his transition, plays Jody, and Willem Dafoe plays the scientist. I would love to see Dafoe in games more often. In an era where developers chase grinds and huge open worlds, hits like Beyond Two Souls feel like a breath of fresh air.
Valiant Hearts: The Great War. These days, almost everyone is criticizing Ubisoft for their assembly line approach. But there was a time when this studio knew how to pleasantly surprise us not only with major titles, but also with smaller games. One such game is Valiant Hearts: The Great War. I'm sure even the most stoic player shed a few tears while playing it. The developers managed to create an amazing visual quest about World War I. Don't be fooled by the visual style. This is a project that shows war not romantically, but in its ugliest aspects, which are sometimes deeply unsettling. The story follows several characters who are interconnected in some way, accompanied by a stunning narrator's voice that recounts the events. The game is a sort of visual tour of WWI, where through collectible notes you can learn about real historical events, such as the first use of gas attacks. Since the main focus is on the story and the drama, the gameplay seems simple, but that's only at first glance. Some puzzles will genuinely make you scratch your head. Again, don't be swayed by the visuals. If you were looking for something extremely original, you can't pass this game up.